Hey, welcome to the TikTok Take with Doug Pagitt, talk edition with our astrophysicist, Paul Wallace. You're going to love this. Paul Wallace has become a friend of mine in the last number of months, and he teaches physics, astrophysics, to college students, like freshman college students. So whenever we're together, I try to pepper him with questions and have asked him if he'd become a regular whenever there's a physics-themed topic in the news. And a couple of those have come up this week on CNN. One about a partner kind of galaxy, a twin galaxy to the Milky Way. So I asked Paul about galaxies and sort of what they are and how they work. I feel like I know a lot about science, kind of a popular level, and, I like poke around and pay a little attention. But as more he talks, I just realize, my gosh, I know almost nothing about how all this works. So this interview is Paul helping me understand galaxies and what it means for there to be one like ours. We talk about dark matter. We then start talking about the discovery of a new exoplanet around another star that's similar to the Earth. And we talk about life and why there's life on Earth, and we haven't discovered in other places. It's a really fun conversation to have had with Paul. I really hope that you enjoy it. We start out with just a little chit-chat, just a little getting to know each other kind of thing. And I was asking him about the phrase being a rocket scientist, and wouldn't it be much better to be, an astrophysicist than a rocket scientist. So it's super fun. But before we get into it, I like to start each of the podcasts with its own theme song. Sometimes a song that goes along with the conversation, and sometimes it's just a song that I like a lot, and I think it'd be good if you heard it and know it too. So this isn't exactly a science song or anything, and some of you might think, it's actually a bit of a, heartbreaking, longing, desiring something you can't get in the world sort of song. And, well, it's exactly what it is, and I kind of like it. So even though it doesn't have anything to do with science, it doesn't have anything to do with Paul Wallace, my friend, it's not a song of me to him. It's just a song I like, and heard it the other day and thought, there's a great little song. I think it should be one of the theme show songs on the TikTok Take with Doug Pagitt. So here you go from Delta Ray.
Life would be easy, there'd be no truth that I'd be scared of. I could walk through every valley and you light me with all of your love. But I don't love you, not like I want to. I don't love you, and that makes it hard. And every morning I see how you watch me, and each night I know you feel it, and it just breaks your heart. light up my world. Oh, wouldn't we love? I'd marry you tomorrow and we'd make love, and I'd be your girl. But I don't love you much as I want to. I don't love you though. It would be a lie. You deserve love. You're better than a good thing. You'll find it, but just not in my eyes, 'cause it ain't here love. No, no, it ain't here love.
All right, so here it is, my conversation with Paul Wallace, astrophysicist and professor at Agnes Scott College in Atlanta. We start out by talking about the difference between a rocket scientist and an astrophysicist. And I was asking Paul about why the phrase, you don't have to be a rocket scientist, has lasted so long. And then we get into the other interesting parts of the conversation.
It used to be rocket scientist. Maybe we can push it toward astrophysicist.
Yeah, so do you think it's more impressive to be an astrophysicist or to be a rocket scientist?
I don't know. I think it's pretty close, actually.
Like, do astrophysicists say things to each other like, it's not like you have to be a rocket scientist to figure this out?
Yeah, right. No, actually, when I hear rocket science, I think engineer.
Yeah.
And I'm really impressed with engineers in general.
How did rocket scientists become the thing? Do you know? Like, is it because in the 60s?
It's got to be in the 60s, the whole space race and the fact that we did the thing that JFK said we were going to do. I think it was just it gave scientists physicists and space guys so much, perhaps even more credit than, we're actually due.
Yeah.
But it turned us into a worldwide, like the smart. We became the smart guys,
right? And it's kind of funny that we've kept that. I'm not downplaying at all what it takes to be a rocket scientist, but it does seem like that's like a 50-year-old thing to be a rocket scientist, right? Like we've been doing that for 50 or 60 years. That's not such a that's not such a big.
We need to change it. We need to update it.
Yeah, like there needs to be a new one, and I think it should be an astrophysicist.
You have my vote. I'm with you.
Well, so this is Paul Wallace. Paul is an astrophysicist, and he's going to be one of the regulars on the TikTok Take with Doug Pagitt. So, Paul, tell us what does it mean for someone to be an astrophysicist? And are there ever people who claim to be an astrophysicist who the rest of you real astrophysicists say things like, oh, well, that's not really what we mean by being an astrophysicist, because it seems like every discipline has like other people that want to say, like when you meet a chiropractor, if you're a chiropractor, that the other MDs are like, well, yeah, but that's not really a doctor, or they say stuff like that.
Yeah, right. No, there's really nothing like that. The people who tend to get, the people who the popular crowd thinks are astrophysicists. Actually, most of them don't actually do astrophysics anymore. Now, Stephen Hawking does. But people like Neil deGrasse Tyson, Bill Nye, these guys are Tyson actually was a physicist and a practicing physicist. He doesn't do that much anymore, I don't think. I think he mostly is a popularizer.
When someone is a practicing astrophysicist, how do they practice that? Does that mean they're associated with a laboratory somewhere?
Sure. Like the one that I have experience with is Goddard Space Flight Center. It's a NASA installation up just outside of D.C. It's an entire campus filled up with large blocky buildings. If you go inside, you walk down a hall, and there's a bunch of space posters on the wall, and you look inside the offices, and a bunch of people, women, men, sitting at computers working. So that's what doing astrophysics looks like.
Not so much looking like not on mountain ranges in Hawaii looking through telescopes.
That happens some, certainly, but most, I think, people who who go to those and talk about Hawaii. Let's talk about Hawaii, like up on top of the big island. There's a big telescope, Keck up there. Observers, I mean, scientists do often go there, but mostly they're not there. Mostly who works there are the engineers and the people who do their observations for them, and then they send all the data from the observation to them, over the interwebs. But 99% of the work of an astrophysicist it's indistinguishable from, office managers.
Like a clerical office manager?
Yeah, right.
Really?
Right. Sitting at a computer, working.
Like how often do you think those people at Goddard Space Station or Goddard Space, what's it called? Goddard Space
Flight Center.
Flight Center. How many do you think of them have two screens open, one with like Instagram and Facebook on it and the other one with their calculations? Are they those kinds of people?
Yeah, there may be some Instagrammers out there, but my experience there was about 10 years ago or more, so there was no Instagram at the time.
Oh, that's right. What did you guys do to be?
They're pretty intense workers. They do their work. They're not. I mean, they blow off steam and have a good time when time comes, but when they're working, they're into the work. Yeah.
When you're hanging around as because you are an astrophysicist. And now you're in education. Is that how you describe it? Like you're no longer practicing? Like you're
I'm no longer practicing. I'm no longer writing scientific, technical papers on astronomy or astrophysics.
Yeah. What is it that that the astrophysicists collective or community? What is it that how do they describe what they're doing? Like if people are in biomedical kind of world, like they're trying to make life-changing and life-saving products, right. And that kind of the sciences all tend to feel this pressure to describe what they do in these really practical terms that change people's lives.
And astronomers and astrophysicists do it by invoking wonder. They're not trying to build a better can opener. They're trying to investigate what's out there.
Do you all have to say to each other, is there a newsletter that goes around and meetings where you have to encourage each other on that? Like, hey, don't compare yourself to the other science disciplines. It's okay if we inspire wonder, or is that?
No. There's virtually zero during the workday. There's virtually zero reference to anything outside of the work. In a case it's rather insular in that case, in that sense. Around lunch we might have discussions about astrophysics versus biology or something like that, but there's no sort of corporate kind of pep rally or anything like that.
Because I guess I have this imagination. I don't even know where it comes from. That these are super smart people with some kind of a whiteboard or a tablet, and they're describing and discussing and coming to these great conclusions. But it sounds more like they're people working on math problems at a
most science work, day in day out science work is not romantic. It's really just mundane. It feels mundane. It's repetitive. There's a lot of thinking work in it. Don't get me wrong, but it's not. There's not a whole lot of single-minded focus on the work, and it's interrupted, by periods of great celebration and real insight. But most of the work is just that. It's imagine doing physics problems at a table. That's the kind of intensity that you just put into it all the time. So it's not always fun.
And then every once in a while, the Paul Wallaces or the Hawkings or the Tysons kind of break through all of this and become like a spokesperson for the
right. And that's kind of my calling is partially to do that sort of thing.
Are you consider once people do that, do the people still doing the work, do they tend to talk about the grandstanders or the popularizers in that sort of way that other disciplines talk about people who take the intricacies of the
and they're very valuable. I think most scientists really most of them don't have a capacity for that or an interest in doing it, and they really value those who do have the capacity and the great skill, like Tyson.
Oh, they do.
They really value it because it's nothing is better for science.
Huh.
Astronomy's it's pretty easy PR because of just the wonderful pictures and the mind-blowing ideas and stuff.
Yeah.
But no, there's a great deal of appreciation for people who do it well. Now, there's a bunch of clowns out there too, but I mean, the people that you know about are people who do it well, and the science community is appreciative of them.
Well, that's that's actually good to hear.
There's not really any looking down on them.
Oh, because in so many, like you think about lawyers, that if they become like a television lawyer, a popularizer of law, the people in the profession think that about, they tend to think down on them. Or
well, those people are not on the public dole. Scientists tend to be funded by the government. And they need support from you, and they need support from me and anybody else who's no longer is not a practicing scientist. They need that base, or they don't survive.
So is it really still true that most astrophysicists, at least you can speak about that, but maybe other scientists, that they're working with monies that come via some grant, or they're on the payroll of a government institution?
There's no way colleges and universities can fund what scientists do, but no way. There's no way they have the money for it.
So, does this come up at every libertarian, every libertarian meeting where someone wants to defund the federal government? Do the astrophysicists all get together and say, "Hey, we wouldn't be discovering,
I mean, there's a constant major scale fight in the budget from science every year. NSF's a big one, right? NSF is one of the biggest.
What is that, NSF?
It's the National Science Foundation. It's basically the big government outlet for research money. And it's a huge fight every year for the budget. Yeah. And, we have lobbyists and just like everybody else.
Why do you think, with NASA, changing its sort of workflow and outsourcing the inner orbit flights to SpaceX and all these other people, why do you think they did that? Are they trying? Is there an effort to try to push toward private industry on these things? Or
I think so. I think that some people in the government like that, but also, NASA that stuff wouldn't be happening if it wasn't for NASA in the first place. Those private people SpaceX wouldn't be doing what they're doing without NASA having blazed the trail.
So it feels like they've done all that they should do, and now it's time to roll it over to the private industry.
Yeah, I think NASA should be working on cutting edge stuff like they are doing. And I know SpaceX wants to do something having to do with Mars, but I see no problem having private companies work with NASA on it. But I'm not sure that the private companies could do it all themselves. I don't think there's enough money for it.
Well, I didn't expect to talk about the budget, but that's kind of
fun.
There
you go. It always comes down to money, doesn't it?
So, So a couple of the things that I thought would be fun to talk about today are these popularized news stories that I saw on CNN. So I'm just assuming that once it's reached CNN, this is no longer big news in the astronomy.
Well, they work pretty quick.
Really?
I might have known about it a couple of days ahead of time. Maybe I didn't in this case, but I might have. But no, they work pretty quickly. They've got a pretty well-greased publicity machine. Scientists do.
Wow, that really surprises me.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's this article about there being a dark twin to the Milky Way galaxy.
Yes.
And so I got to tell you, I don't want to sound like I don't know anything, but when they say the galaxy and then there's a twin to the galaxy, can you just give say a freshman in college level explanation of the galaxy versus the universe?
It's like cars. It's like, on one level, all cars are the same, right? They got four wheels, they got an engine or a motor or whatever, electric. They basically, you know a car when you see one.
Right.
But like cars and trucks, they come in all kinds of different shapes and sizes and forms, and it turns out that this particular galaxy has it's about the same mass as our galaxy. it's a spiral galaxy like our own. So it's similar. It's like comparing, an Accord to some, small sedan like that. Yeah. It's similar in size and shape and basically in a lot of the ways as our own galaxy. That's what it means by twin. It doesn't mean that, we were born from the same big galaxy, or something like that.
It's just, it's similar enough.
It's a way of saying that it has similar characteristics. Yeah.
Okay. So a couple other ninth grade questions about this.
Mm-hmm.
How many galaxies are there in our, that we know of?
That we know of?
If someone asks you, how many galaxies are there?
that we can see, that we can detect, several hundred billion, maybe.
Couple
hundred billion with a B.
Billion galaxies.
Billion. Hundred billion.
So what distinguishes a galaxy from another galaxy? Is it space? Like it's
just space. Yep.
Space in between.
Yep, and a lot of it turns out.
I mean, the scale at which you people talk about this, that there are billions of galaxies, is just like. Do you feel like you actually can conceive of that kind of scale and other people can't, or do you all not fuss with conceiving?
Not relative to me, no. Not relative to like the table I'm sitting at or the building I'm sitting in or even the planet Earth. No, I can't conceive of the scale. No, I can picture it. I can scale it all down and sort of see it. On a smaller mental scale, but then I'm lost in that scale. So there's no real sense of space. There's no easy way. There's no way to really get that.
So this particular galaxy that they're talking about, they call the dark twin to the Milky Way galaxy. According to the article, it's called Dragonfly 44, and it's 300 million light years away in the Coma constellation.
The Coma cluster, yeah. It's a huge cluster of galaxies. Galaxies are not just uniformly spread out. They come in big groups.
They do. Why do you think that is?
Well, that's just how things have mutual gravity. Pulling. Just like the solar system stays together, right? Why are all the planets together? Because of the gravity.
I was going to ask you that. Gravity. Why is that? Why? Oh.
Yeah, it's gravity. It's just all matter, and this is really weird when you think about it. But all matter attracts all other matter, and so the whole solar system stays together mainly because of the attraction to the sun. So these clusters are held together by their own gravity.
So one of the things we're going to talk about in a bit, because the big point of interest about this Dragonfly 44 is that it causes astrophysicists to think differently about dark matter. Is it only called dark matter because we don't know what it is? So it's like
that's exactly why
the unknown matter.
Yes, right. That's right. Because it doesn't show up at any wavelength. In other words, all things emit light. You and I emit light, but it's infrared light, so we can't see it. All things emit light, but whatever dark matter is, we've not detected it at any wavelength of light, and we've tried. So it just doesn't show up. But it shows up only through its gravitational effects.
So what is it about this galaxy that has flipped the thinking about dark matter?
Well, it's just it has not thought before that dark matter sort of can exist more or less on its own. It always seems to be clumped with visible matter, like our own Milky Way galaxy.
Yeah.
Glowing stars. It's a nice big spiral shape. I don't have a picture of it right here, but there's one around here somewhere. Nice, and the dark matter is not only in our galaxy, but in all other galaxies. Dark matter seems to be sort of bundled up with the visible matter. So it's a package deal, right? You don't get dark matter by itself, and you don't get luminous matter by itself either.
Because matter
you get
attracts
them together.
Matter. Okay,
it's a package deal. But this galaxy is so lopsided on the side of dark matter that it changes the way we think about it.
Oh, so there's they can see there's a galaxy, and they can tell by the gravitational effects somehow, which I'll ask you about in a minute, that there's dark matter functioning there, but there's not very many stars that they can see.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, so
the stars that you can see should not hold together. If all the stars that you can see is all there were, it would fly apart. It wouldn't be able to keep itself together. There's not there's not enough mass there to produce the gravity. So to hold the stars we can see together.
So in a discovery like this, at what point did they shift from we must be reading this wrong, or maybe we're missing something, to the conclusion that no, there's a different ratio of the unknown matter, the dark matter, versus the matter we can see because it's emanating some sort of light?
Well, usually it's a process. So I can't remember who said it, but somebody said that the most common herald of scientific discovery is not eureka, but that's funny or that's weird. That's what you get. And so somebody, I don't know how this particular story unfolded, but somebody certainly said, this has got to be wrong.
Yeah.
Let's check it. And then, hey, you over there in California, you check it. And somebody over in Japan, I want them to check it too. Everybody check it independently and see if we're all getting the same thing. And over time, you start to say, okay, this is not just an effect of my observations, or I'm missing some data. This is something real that everybody is seeing.
What kinds of speculations are there about what dark matter is? Do people think it's other dimensions? Do they think it's particles and waves? Do they think it's something?
Yeah. And back 20 years ago, there were two classifications of possible answers to that. One of them, the scientists really love, as much as the military love acronyms. One of them was WIMPs.
Okay. I've heard that. Yeah, WIMP matter
WIMPs,
or something. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Weakly interacting massive particles.
Yeah.
All that means, Doug, is that what we have here is just a lot of little small particles, the gravity adding up.
I see.
Individual particles, as opposed to the other group, which was machos. I'm not making this up. Machos.
Really?
Massive compact halo objects. Okay. And what those were things like black holes, big collections of matter that were really dense and large. So you had the really dense, large stuff was one possibility, and the WIMPs were the other. Mm-hmm. And we're tending towards the WIMPs. This is some sort of particle, because we ruled out pretty much the large, massive things, the machos, like black holes and stuff like that. So we're thinking in terms of fundamental particles now.
So when something like that gets ruled out, just for the layman here, how do they? What kind of calculations do they run? And aren't all of those calculations built around a set of assumptions that the start could be wrong?
And scientists, the better ones, keep their assumes in mind all the time.
Mm-hmm. So how do they do it? They because they can't send anything out there, right? It's all via observation. Is that right? All
via observation. Yes. But you also remember that we have all kind of gifts up there. You can take the light and put it through a spectrum, break up the light into a rainbow, basically. Uh-huh. Visible and invisible, infrared, ultraviolet, whatever. Also, the further back we look in space, so when you see the sun, you go outside today, you look up at the sun. I suppose you can see the sun from Minnesota.
From Minnesota, sometimes, yeah.
You're seeing the sun as it was 8 minutes and 20 seconds ago. You're looking back in time.
So the sun could have burned out by now. We just don't. No, I guess the gravity would have already showed me that.
We would two things. If the sun were to burn out this instant, you wouldn't see it disappear for 8 minutes and 20 seconds, and also the Earth would keep orbiting for 8 minutes and 20 seconds.
And then
gravity
it would just
travels at the speed of light as well, or really close to it. So we wouldn't know anything for 8 minutes and 20 seconds.
So we always, at any given point, you could be 8 minutes and 20 seconds away from total. This is true.
So when you look at the closest star, it's 4.2 light years away. That means that light left. You're seeing the stars it was 4.2 years ago. So this galaxy, 300 million light years away, we're seeing it as it appeared 300 million years ago.
300 million years ago.
So dinosaurs were, just about. So dinosaurs were in their early stages.
Yeah, if you believe in such things.
Yeah.
300 million years ago.
No, actually, dinosaurs had not even shown up yet.
Okay, so just a quick primer. How do they know that it's 300 million light years away?
That's the question, isn't it? Well, the probably unsatisfying answer to that is the way we know. Well,
it won't be unsatisfying.
Okay. Suppose I had so you got a second? You got a second. Suppose I had a 10-watt light bulb, and you knew it was 10 watts. Mm-hmm. And we were going to say we're out on a football field in the middle of the night, total darkness.
Yeah.
You could tell by how bright that light bulb appeared to you. You could make an estimate of how far away it was. If I had it right in your face, it's really bright. If I'm 50 yards away, it looks dimmer.
Yeah.
Maybe by the time I get 100 yards away, you can't even see it.
So there was this time that I was at this camp, and I was a youth leader, like as an adult, and we were doing some night game where we were chasing these kids and playing capture the flag or something. And we were down in this little ravine, and we were trying to track the moon, and to sort of see okay, the moon's up there, and then we got to run to the left. We got all lost, and it turned out the light that we saw in the distance wasn't the moon. It was a pop machine, a soda machine up on top of a hill.
Well, that's a bummer.
And we couldn't tell
unless you were thirsty, I guess.
No, it was terrible. And we couldn't tell the difference between the light, the brightness of because we're idiots.
Right.
So how do they know how do they know what brightness the star is to know? Because wouldn't that matter, right? I should have known that the sun, the moon wasn't going to be as bright as that dingly pop machine.
Well, there are things called Type 1 supernovas. Stars, massive stars, 20 times the mass of the sun and larger. When they blow their lids, in a very certain way.
Oh.
And the maximum brightness of these events is pretty much uniform. It doesn't matter where the Type 1 supernova happens; it's the same brightness.
Huh.
And so that's our 10-watt light bulb.
I see.
That's our knowledge of the 10-watt piece. And there's other ways of doing this. There's actually dozens of ways of telling distances to things.
Wow. How, and all of this astronomy and astrophysics stuff has been developed in the last 70 years, 50 years, 100 years?
Yeah, let's see. In 1930 is the year that we discovered there were other galaxies. We didn't know there were other galaxies other than the Milky Way until about 1930, maybe slightly before 1930.
How long did it take before the entire astrophysicist community believed that there were other galaxies? Was that instant, or
No, it was a huge deal. It was a huge deal for about 10 years in astronomy.
Wow.
People didn't realize if there were other galaxies or not. So that 1930 date is the end of a long debate. It was actually called the Great Debate about what are these things we're seeing in the sky. Are they little things that are inside of our own galaxy, or are these other galaxies way, way far beyond our own?
And was that made possible by the telescope, by being able to look out there? Or
it was made possible by discovering a certain kind of star called a Cepheid that had a certain bright. All these Cepheid stars have the same brightness, basically. I'll put it to you that way.
Mm-hmm.
Discovering Cepheid stars in a local nearby galaxy. And being able to using it in the same way we did the supernovas. We know how bright these kinds of stars are, and we know how bright the star appears to be, so we know how far away they are. So that's how it was discovered, and it was a big to do for about 10 years.
How do they measure the brightness of a star?
They basically point a telescope at it and collect light from it.
Really?
Over a set amount of time in a set wavelength. Yeah. A telescope's like a light bucket. It collects light. And so you point the telescope towards a certain star and then look at that star through a certain waveband of light for 10 seconds, and then you get so many photons, you get so much light, and from that you can tell what its actual brightness is.
And so in that sense, all the light being emitted from these stars, all that light is the same. It's not different.
It's all light. Yes.
Is all light the same? Like if it's neon light or LED light?
Not. It's not. It only varies by wavelength. So,
but it doesn't travel at different speed or anything.
No, it doesn't travel at different speed. Actually, yeah, that's pretty much true. It doesn't travel at different speeds. But the hot stars are blue, cool stars are red. They're different colors.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if we take the light and spread it out into a rainbow, different stars look different.
Oh.
Also, some stars grow bright and dim in a regular way. They're called variable stars for good reason. Sometimes they're bright, sometimes they're dim.
That must have really thrown people off when they got variable stars, and they
Well, people discovered them before they knew it. There's a star over by Orion that gets bright and dim, but it crosses the human threshold. So sometimes you see it quite brightly, sometimes it's invisible. And if you're an ancient person and you spend time, you don't have TV, right? So you go outside and look at the sky at night, you know this stuff. That there's a star called Mira up there that sometimes is visible and sometimes is not, and it's very regular.
What makes it visible and not visible?
It's unstable. The rate at which it's burning fuel in its core is changing.
Oh.
It's evolving. All stars evolve. They have birthdays, and then they go through a life cycle, and then they die. Huh. And some stars near the end of their lives become unstable and start to pulsate like this.
It's like a menopausal star.
It's exactly like that.
Women are gonna write in and tell me not to make menopause jokes. I should have learned that a long time ago.
I was about to say, you said that, I didn't say that.
Okay, so this little twin galaxy that's out there, this little cutie that's sitting over there, that they call Dragonfly 44, is named after the telescope that discovered it?
I'm assuming. I don't know that.
That's what the article said.
Yeah, that's actually how it's normally done.
Really?
But very few telescopes have catchy titles like Dragonfly.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, someone needs to come up with Dragonfly is pretty cool. And would this mean that this is the 44th?
Yes.
The 44th
galaxy of some kind discovered by, that's exactly what it means.
By this Dragonfly.
That's right.
So it seems to me that so much of our understanding is somehow based on the tools of detection, either the telescopes or the whatever else is used to measure. Like
mostly telescopes.
What's that?
Mostly telescopes.
Mostly telescopes. Are there whole new telescopes coming? Like the Hubble telescope, I know is a popular thing and a big deal.
A few years from now, it'll be like Hubble on steroids. It's not really called that. It's called the James Webb Space Telescope, and it'll be launched in a few years.
And what do you expect that will allow us to see?
Well, we'll see a lot further. We'll see a lot more really, really remote stuff. And by remote, I mean billions of light years, like with a B, a long, long way away. We'll get some insight into what conditions were like shortly after the Big Bang. But we also don't know what we're going to see. Because we don't know. You can't,
Okay, so tell me about, so the Big Bang, right?
Right.
Why is the ability to see further something that will tell us about the Big Bang?
It's not so much further as it is better.
Better.
We can see very far back now, but we're limited by the dim. It's so dim. These galaxies are the dimmest things we've ever photographed. And so what the Webb telescope will help us do is to get better images of the same distant stuff. So we'll see just about as far back, maybe slightly further back. You can't go much further back, but we'll be able to see that really ancient stuff much more clearly.
How many billion years ago was that Big Bang?
13.8.
13.8 billion years.
Give or take 10 million years.
Yeah, whatever. It was a rounding error.
Whatever.
It's a tip. 13.8 billion years. And when do you and do you think this new telescope will give people the ability to see that far back?
No, we can't see that far back.
They already know that.
Yeah, we can see back to about 300,000 years after that.
Why don't they make a better telescope and just finish up that?
Because it's like a wall. It's not a technological limit. It's a absolute physical limit.
What does that mean? What does that mean? It's hard to teach people that don't know anything, isn't it?
How do I say this? Maybe put it this way. Basically, this is when, let me see if I can.
And does Donald Trump know about this wall? Because he does not know about this wall. 13.8 billion years ago, there was a wall built.
It's already been done.
Yeah, that's right. The wall. He shouldn't be talking about the wall of China. He should be talking about like the. Is it how is it referred? Is it the particle wall? Is it a observation wall?
Actually, it's called the particle horizon.
It is particle horizon.
That's what it's called. So you use the word particle there. That was a good shot.
Yeah.
The particle before horizon. That, there was nothing to see.
Oh,
put it that.
Like particles didn't come into being until 300,000 years after the bang.
Atoms were formed 300,000 years after the Big Bang.
I see.
At that point, things got cool enough to where atoms could stick together.
So in whatever form the atoms were before they cooled enough to turn into observable,
so
if we could
take hydrogen. Hydrogen was is a bunch of protons and electrons floating around.
Yeah, I see. Oh,
like freely, not connected. But then when things cooled down, they were able to stick together and form hydrogen. And so at that moment, that's when light was able to pass through everything.
Okay, so one more of these. How do they know that it took roughly 300,000 years for those particles to cool down enough?
Mainly because we know atomic physics pretty well. And one of our big assumptions is that the physics of the past and the physics of out there is the same as the physics that we have here on Earth.
How confident are you in that assumption?
Fairly confident because it's been fruitful. It's an assumption that we've made, but it's been exceedingly fruitful.
I see.
If you make a bad assumption, then you build off of it for a long time, you expect for there to be contradictions to start showing up more. So it's the fruitfulness of the assumption. That's why we believe it. Also, there's no observational evidence to say it's not true. And there could be. We can imagine observational evidence that would tell us that it is not the same elsewhere as it is here. We haven't seen it.
Huh.
So that's why we believe it.
All right. So moving from galaxies, the second big news story was that there's perhaps a inhabitable exoplanet. Yes. Now,
around our very closest neighbor.
Is that Proxima B?
Proxima Centauri is the name of the star. Proxima B is the planet that orbits that star.
And this is in our galaxy?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's the closest star to the sun.
How close?
4.2 light years.
And how far is the sun from the Earth?
93 million miles. So this is 25 trillion miles.
25 trillion miles.
Trillion with a T this time. Yeah, it's a real awesome. That's close. That's
awesome. Okay, so it's a super long way away.
Yes.
Do we pick up any light or radiation? I mean, obviously there's some light, but without a telescope, is there a way? I mean, does that light make it all the way here?
If the star were somewhat brighter, it would.
So what happens to light? So the light that's coming from what was it called? Centaurus?
Proxima Centauri.
Proxima Centauri.
This is called Proxima. Proxima's fine.
The light coming from Proxima, that star, it's emanating out of the star and it's traveling through space.
Right.
And then at some point it just sort of dips and doesn't make it all the way here?
No.
It just keeps coming, right?
It's going out in all directions.
Yeah. And does it ever stop?
No.
So
unless it hits something, unless some of this light hits our telescopes.
So why does it
that'll stop it, but most of it doesn't ever hit anything.
So why does it get dimmer if it's further away?
I wish I had I'd love to show you a little picture, draw a little picture for you.
Like with a little stick man? Like,
yeah.
This is actually explainable with a stick man?
Because you got to spread that power, that brightness out over a larger and larger area. It's like waves on if you go to a pond and you drop a stone in, right around where you dropped it, the waves are pretty high. But if you're on the other side of the pond, you're going to see them, but they're going to be a lot weaker. As they spread out, they get less and less high. Their amplitude goes down. They get less obvious. And so, same thing happens with light. Although it drops off more quickly, it loses intensity more quickly with light. But it's the same sort of idea. And it turns out that Proxima Centauri is beneath the threshold of what we can see with our eyes. We can see it in a small telescope easily, but we can't see it with our eyes. Okay,
so there's a belief that because of the brightness of that star and sort of its intensity, and they've recently discovered a planet near there that they think, that planet, that all seems Earth-like. That the relationship to Proxima and the...
What seems Earth-like?
This little planet that they've discovered, this
exoplanet? It is. It's got several things about it that make it Earth-like, yeah.
Like what? What do they see and what makes it an exoplanet?
Any planet that does not orbit the sun is called an exoplanet.
Oh, so it's just sort of self-referential. It's just like if it's not around our sun, then we call it an exoplanet.
Right.
Oh.
And this one is Earth-like in three ways. Its mass is somewhere between 1 and 2 solar masses. Earth masses. So it's bigger than the Earth, but not much.
Mm-hmm.
Its size is probably between 1 and 1.5 times the size of the Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And also, it orbits in what's called the habitable zone of its star. It orbits at the right distance from Proxima so that liquid water can exist on it. Liquid water, we believe, is a requirement for life.
Yeah.
So we think that those three ways, it's like the Earth. Some other ways it's not, but in those ways it is.
Wow. Do you have a sense yourself about other sophisticated life that exists in the universe?
Yeah, I think it's probably out there. I'm not sure we're ever going to talk to it, communicate with it.
Yeah.
So my position is unassailable. No, I think it's out there, but I think it's probably so rare that the probability that it's going to be next door at Proxima is essentially zero.
So, as a person, who thinks about philosophy and people and regular folks and faith and Christianity and all this, because you mix all that together.
Yeah.
Isn't it odd that there's such consistency across the universe, so much so that you kind of know, well, the stars are all at the same time. Like, there's so much that's the same that you can make all these predictions. And then there's like these little onesies and twosies maybe of like, oh, there happens to be a planet that has a kind of life on it that's nowhere else that we could, I mean, even if it's just in a couple of places.
Yeah.
That is like, how do people in your business think about that? Because that just strikes me, and I'm not trying to make any kind of an argument about does that argue for a creator or anything like that. It just like the sheer oddity of like maybe there's another place we just haven't seen it, and we've seen a lot. Like we're gearing up to look 10 billion years in the past.
Yeah. I think that the odds are against life are enormous. I think that, just given a simple, straightforward scientific evaluation, actually not simple, it's quite complicated, but I think that the odds of against life showing up are enormous. And it does actually blow my mind that you and I are here on this planet having this conversation.
Because it's not just life. It's not like what they think maybe they've discovered on Mars, right? Like maybe there's some kind of a little, I don't know, whatever, amoeba or plankton or something,
Bacteria,
bacteria deep down in the, 16 feet under the surface or whatever it is. No, it's like robust and just bursting everywhere in all
crazy.
Kinds of diversity. That really seems crazy that I just can't even get my mind around that.
Some scientists can't believe it either. I mean, even some staunch, non-theists out there just are silenced by that because it is so overwhelming. And so some of them have come up with ideas about the multiverse and that we're just one of many universes, and that does relate. And there's all kinds of nice speculative ideas that I think get them over that hump.
Huh.
But for me, they're just speculative ideas. They don't really do much for me.
Like what? Because science likes and I guess has a complicated relationship with things that are different. Things that are out of the norm. Like that's what you're always looking for, right? Is the variant, and then on the other hand, you really don't want there to be such variance that it shows that we don't know what we need to know.
Right.
What's the relationship like to the fact that, on our planet, we can't find anything else anywhere in the whole of what we've observed, except maybe this one, the exoplanet, that's similar to this? Like how?
Oh, there's other planets like ours out there. We have found other planets.
There is.
Oh, yeah.
And there's no life on them.
This one is only notable because it's so close. That's the only thing that makes it notable.
And from what they know about these other planets, similar to this one, do they think there's life on it in a robust sort of way, whether it's intelligent or not? I don't know. I mean, is it like the Earth?
I think the odds are against it being robust.
Really?
Because we would have heard from them by now. If they have advanced equipment that can detect radio signals, they might have already figured out that we're here. And I think that if they were suitably advanced, that we would have heard from them.
What if it's just, what if their planets are more like, I don't know, Earth a million years ago? Where
right. Or the Earth a million years from now when we've blown ourselves up. Who knows?
Hey, I met someone at a family function where I had to do a little pastor thing, and she's writing she lives in California, and she's writing a television series, and it's very similar to the narrative, which I'm not even sure she knew that it was this similar, to Planet of the Apes, where there's a space person that goes out and then gets caught in some sort of time thing and then comes back to the Earth, like, I don't know, 160 years from now or something like that. And what's happened is there's been a massive breakthrough of peace and harmony on the planet. And so the show is how... Like it's sort of the opposite of the dystopian world, right? Like what would you do if you came back and everything you knew, which was about separation and segregation and hostility and violence, didn't exist anymore. So you and your crew are the people. Instead of you being like the righteous ones and the whole place,
you're the bastards,
and the whole place has gone to hell. That you're the others, and it's called. So I think it's called 2015, or 2115, or something like that. 2115, so it must be like 90 years.
So this is like some cosmic, like, consciousness level breakthrough that we have, and we all of a sudden become peaceful.
Yeah, there was a series of peace treaties signed, and people started to say, like, hey, that actually works better. 100 years from now. And I just thought,
never happened.
And she's not a religious person per se, kind of spiritual, but I just thought, isn't that a fascinating way to sort of talk about like the future of what if like massive peace were to break out on the planet and everyone were starting to cooperate? But that feels even more science fiction, doesn't it?
That sounds like that movie what was the one? Contact.
Yes,
you ever see Contact?
Yeah,
like those big, super benign space aliens who just had nothing but love for the whole cosmos.
Yeah,
I wasn't buying it. Like the most boring possible aliens I've ever seen in my life.
That's right. They're no fun.
They're no fun.
Hey, Paul, thanks so much for doing this and for this little lesson. I hope you'll do this again. But I also have two questions for you. One of them is, what is the learning or the contribution from the astronomy, astrophysics world that most of us miss, that we really should know and be paying more attention to? Like, what does it provide for us that a lot of people wouldn't even would just slide by?
Give me a second. That's an excellent question. Never had that before.
My day is complete.
The thing that, I think that one thing, and this might apply to all science, is science is not, in some quarters, has a bad name. I am impressed with two things about science. One is the scale of it. It's huge. It's huge. And it's got a million faces. The other thing is that, at least in the physics and astronomy world that I come from, the degree of care and circumspection that goes into announcements, not necessarily public announcements, but into real actual discoveries, the degree to which they bend, in the words of Richard Feynman, bend over backwards to show that they're wrong. They try to show that in other words, there is, in fact, I believe, an ethos in the best of science of healthy skepticism. And it's really, the degree of checking and cross-checking and asking new questions and doubting is just unbelievable. And I think most people don't get that.
Yeah, and I guess, as if this part of science was an exemplar for the rest of life, like that's a really good thing to learn from this discipline,
it's a great
isn't
thing.
it? Yeah.
It's a great thing.
Yeah, because not all science tends. Oh, I don't know. I shouldn't say it. It seems like there are some avenues of science that that doesn't feel like it needs sort of that level. That there's just a much higher level of speculation to the public.
Some science is that way.
Yeah.
Some science tends that way.
Yeah, like the social. When I was a long time ago in college, I was in the social sciences field. That kind of seems like it's that way, right? And maybe that's just the difference between the sciences and the social sciences.
I do think that physicists tend to be the ones who are the most careful. But see, we also have the best data, so we can afford to be careful.
Yeah, right.
We can afford to spend 2 extra months poring over this data before we tell anybody about it, because the data's good. We can get more, and I think that the quality of it means that we have the luxury of being really pretty sure by the time we let it fly.
Okay, so my inverse question of this is what of the other disciplines, whether it's like faith or religion or art or music or sport or I don't know, leisure life.
Yeah.
What contributions from any of those do you think could be made into the sciences world, especially the physics world? That would be a real contribution. Like, how could that discipline be better if it was more like one of these other ones? And is there anything particular in the faith industry or faith sector that would have something positive to contribute?
Well, I don't know, because science can be really conservative. It is by nature conservative.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Boy, it feels so much like it's just on the edge and really.
It is, and it's always doing new things. Huh. But let's take the general relativity, Einstein's theory of general relativity.
Yeah, that old thing's been around for a long time.
I know, it's been around a whole century now.
100 years.
100 years.
Not even interesting anymore.
The point is that we will believe that, and we will use that, and that's basically taken as an assumption by most people until it really just falls apart.
Wow. Until
it clearly and absolutely falls apart. And we're going to keep it in some form, I think, pretty much forever. But in the form that we have it now, scientists, they want what they've been taught to be true, because then they can sort of trust the giants whose shoulders upon which they stand. They can trust what they're standing on. And so I think that sometimes science is too often seen as iconoclastic, and it's really I think it can be, and it can definitely tear down people's ideas of pet ideas, but I don't think it's as iconoclastic as some true prophets are.
Nice.
Or some true, you know what I mean?
Yeah. There's no rookie of the year. There's no album of the year. There's no newcomer of the year award in sciences.
And the longer it goes, the more conservative it gets, like any other institution.
Yeah, I think it was Stanley Fish. Isn't he the person who's like a scientific philosopher?
He's a sort of literary critic or something like that.
Yeah, who said like science changes one death at a time.
Yeah,
something like that. Right? Like,
yeah, it's definitely there's definitely an orthodoxy. There's no question about it. Now, the difference between maybe their orthodoxy and somebody else's is that it actually is, at this point, the best thing we have going. It has been tried and it has been shown to be true, and within limits, and so we stick with it. But there is resistance to change within science, just like there is in any other human enterprise.
There's this big pushback, and in the faith world that I operate in, people will often talk about how faith needs to be more like poetry and less like math, like this kind of thing, right? And there's a lot of that in the world, a lot of...
Yeah, that comes from people who don't know much math.
I was going to ask you about that. Because
math gets pretty poetical after a while.
Really? Okay, so...
yes. Yeah, math.
Really?
It's beautiful, yeah.
What do you mean? How do you mean it's beautiful?
Oh, how do I say it? It's just got... This is a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, okay.
It's not for me to do it. I've got a friend. A friend who could talk to you about the beauty of math.
Well, let's do a 3-way
hours. Oh, he would
conversation with him about that.
Ron Taylor is his name, and he would. Okay. He would love to talk to you, Doug, about that issue.
Oh, really? Because that.
Yes.
If you'd get him on, the three of us could do it together, because that would be really fun. Because it seems to me that there's something about that kind of binary, which I totally get, right? Like, someone's life can't just be a series of observations and calculations and comparisons and conclusions. Like that's not what we mean by life, right? Like life.
That's not what you mean by life. Some people. That's not what I mean by life.
Yeah.
But I've met some folks who are that's pretty much what they mean by life.
Yeah. What do you think that is? Is that just a temperament difference between people, or do you think
it's just it's just temperamental?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're wonderful people. They'll give you the time of day. They're not rude. They're not obnoxious. That's just what they live for.
Yeah, probably a digital readout of the time of the day. Like not one of those little hands on the watch. It's sort of like, I don't know, it's about 5 after.
Yeah.
Like I've noticed that as a person that has an iPhone and like a watch connected to my phone and all that. Like I am so precise about time now compared to 10 or 15 years ago, right? Before I carried a device.
That's actually a drawback to everybody having their clocks tip over to noon at the same instant.
At the same moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
My wife.
Because your phone and mine, they're both going to click over to, it is 1 o'clock. I got a class to 1 o'clock at the same time.
Yeah. It's
12 o'clock for you.
Do you really have a class right now?
I
love
do,
that.
Yeah.
Okay, I love that. You say actually, I mean, like there's not even 1 minute before. It's not like, hey, maybe your clock is ahead.
No, I am writing my notebook and walking 2 doors down.
What are you gonna teach?
Oh, just basic, just like welcome to physics. We're talking about displacement, speed, and velocity. This is like the building blocks.
Yeah, I love it. I should take that class again. These should
You should take it with me.
I should. These should be.
I would love to have you as a student. That'd be awesome.
I would take it. All right, Professor Wallace. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome, Doug. It was a hoot.
Okay, thanks.
Bye.
There it is. Thanks for listening to the TikTok Take with Doug Pagitt, Talk Edition with astrophysicist Paul Wallace. Hey, if you like the show, tell your friends about it. If you like the show, head over to iTunes and tell the people there who read reviews on iTunes, I like TikTok Take with Doug Pagitt. Spread the word, if you would. And if you have suggestions for the show, topics you'd like my take on, or guests you think I should talk to, or something that ticks you off, and we want to get on that let's tick this off list, send them my way. You can do it over at Facebook or email doug@dougpagitt.com. Any way you want to send it. I appreciate you listening to the show, everyone. Thanks a lot. Talk to you soon.